Hi folks, Teacher Joko here, and today we're going to be looking at a Task 2 IELTS writing lesson and a particular type of question using an essay that someone submitted to Facebook for review. What is your opinion on this? That's the type of question we're going to be looking at. It's what you'll find in a general training IELTS exam. You won't find that same wording in an academic, but it is part of the same family, which we'll talk about as the question types. Okay, then we'll look at how the question types influence what it is you have to do, what they're asking you to do. Then we'll have a sample essay, which includes a question. I forgot to put that in there. And then body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2. We'll actually put a band score on this and give him some general advice. Okay, so let's get to it. And by the way, if you like this, please subscribe. I'm not used to saying that stuff. Okay. Question types. How many are there? Well, I think that most IELTS experts would say 5 or 6 perhaps, or maybe it's 10. Well, I think it should be 3 because you can break down them into these 3 categories: opinion essays, discussion essays, and situational essays. So in an opinion essay, in the general training, it will ask, what is your opinion on this? If it's academic, it will give you a statement and then ask, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement, or this development, or this position? Discussion essays will include, of course, discuss both views and give your own opinion questions, as well as advantages and disadvantages, positive and negative development essays as well. And most of them are going to ask you if one of them is more or outweigh the other one, when you should pick a side, but not always. Okay. And then last, situational essays are problems, solutions essays. Of course, there are essays that have, or 2 questions that have 2 questions, and it can draw from any of those 3 categories. It could have 1 opinion and 1 situational, or one. So you just break up the paragraphs in those cases. But we're not talking about that. Today we're talking about opinion essays. In an opinion essay, when you present your ideas, you're choosing which ideas to present. It's not like some other, you're describing the views of other people. These are your opinions, and you need to support your ideas. You always do, but here it's even more important. Because the academic exam asks a question of to what extent, you need to include some accurate language of degree. And in the opinion essay, if you don't have to cover both sides of the issue, may not even be 2 sides to it, but if you don't address the most obvious weaknesses to your own opinions or your own positions, then you're not writing a nuanced essay, well-developed response to the quote. Not opinions, but the response. That's shown in that distinction is in the band descriptors. Okay, so from Facebook we got a question. Let's analyze the question. Oh yes, stop that music. Okay, now here was the question, and then when it was posted on Facebook, it did not include the part at the bottom. Ooh, okay, it's all messed up. Okay, that's fine. In many places, new homes are needed, but the only space available for building them is in the countryside. Some people think it is more important to protect the countryside and not build more homes there. What is your opinion about this? Give reasons for your answers. And now that's where it stopped in the original post, but every Task 2 general training and academic will include the following instructions. Give reasons for your answers and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. They put that there for a reason. Okay, it's something you have to do. And what are the key words here? Many places, new homes are needed. Note it says homes, not houses. And the only space available is in the countryside. Now here's the interesting part. Some people say it is more important to protect the countryside and not build homes there. More important than what? Let's really look at this question. And at the end it ends with, what is your opinion about this? General training. What is this that they're talking about? What is this? The importance of protecting the countryside. Yeah, I'd say that's this here. Is it important to protect the countryside? Of course it is. But is it more important than people having a safe, comfortable, sustainable home at a reasonable price? Well, that's what a nuanced essay would approach.
In the contemporary era, increasing urbanization requires new residential developments in the rural areas. However, some individuals believe that rural areas should be preserved by avoiding constructions of new houses there. I strongly agree with this viewpoint, as rural conservation can have considerable positive environmental impacts in the long run.
Okay, are we recording? No. Okay, in the contemporary era. Now, I know you're trying very hard not to say nowadays, but I think the taboo against nowadays has run its course. You can say nowadays, or you can say in the modern era, and over the last few decades, in recent times. But in the contemporary era is not a collocation that occurs that I'm familiar with. It's just not something people say in the contemporary era. Contemporary to what? Contemporary means at the same time as. However, be preserved by avoiding constructions. Okay, construction is a uncountable noun, or in this case, it's a abstract noun, so it would never be plural like that. Okay. I strongly agree with this viewpoint. You don't need to strongly agree. That language of degree is only for to what extent, or you can still use it, I suppose, but it's hard to strongly agree. It's easier, right? With this viewpoint, comma, as rural conservation can have considerable positive environmental impacts in the long run. Okay, I think overall what I want to say here on your intro is that intros need to be short and sweet. You should be aiming just to paraphrase the question and establish the topic. This is rather a lot of words for an introduction.
Construction of new buildings in the countryside is the preservation of natural habitat and cultural heritage. Industrial developments and constructions of new houses can potentially deteriorate the biodiversity, thereby causing harm to the overall ecosystem. Furthermore, natural habitat is significantly pivotal for the healthy environment. Therefore, for cleaner and fresh air, rural conservation is necessary. For example, the overall well-being of the rural population tends to be more healthy and physically fit than urban population because of the natural environment they are living in.
It's because of the natural environment they're living in, really? One of the primary is not the adjective that I would want to use here. One of the primary reasons for avoiding the construction of new buildings in the countryside is the preservation of natural habitat and cultural heritage. Now, it's read for task response because is the preservation of natural. Okay, I think going for natural habitat and cultural heritage is a stretch. Industrial developments and constructions, okay, industrial developments, this is not about industrial developments. There's nothing in the question about industry. It's all residential. So nothing should be mentioned about industry at all. Constructions, I think I mentioned this before, wasn't it? Was it this? It's uncountable. And the construction of new homes, not just houses, there's lots of other things that people live in, can deteriorate or potentially deteriorates. Can potentially is a double use of a modal verb that it's just wordy. Can potentially deteriorate. The biodiversity. Deteriorate and biodiversity don't really go together. Thereby causing harm to the overall ecosystem. Yes. Is it such impactful harm that it overrides the public need for better housing? So some grasshoppers lose their environment. So what? Okay, but this is not, it doesn't matter if I agree with your opinions or not. It's can you support them? Okay, so all this stuff here about the deteriorating the biodiversity, that's not supported. You're just saying it. In addition to this, yes, you should have supported that. Several old landscapes. How do you know how old the landscape is? It shows that you don't know what landscape means. In the rural areas, don't use the when you're talking in general and you have a plural noun, like you have the rural areas. What rural areas? Signify. Signify is not the right verb there. Are associated with. Help to identify, provide for a national identity. So signify the cultural identity of the nation, making it crucial to. Okay, now you're overdoing it on the words. Making it crucial to preserve its invaluable identity. Okay, making it crucial, invaluable. Crucial and invaluable are the same, are doing the same thing here, so it's extra words you don't need. To pass it down to the next generation. Okay, so now you're going to go from ecosystem, okay, which is natural, to culture in the middle, and then back to ecosystem and environment at the end. That's a very poor paragraph construction. Furthermore, natural habitat is significantly pivotal. So significantly pivotal. If it's pivotal, it's already significant. For cleaner and fresh air, for cleaner, fresher air, if you have a comparative like cleaner than what? Is necessary. It does not follow. Okay, and then this last statement here is completely unsupported with any logic or examples. The overall well-being of rural tends to be more healthy and physically fit than urban populations. How do you know this? And then your reason. Oh, dang it! I missed it. It should be. Can I get that in there? No. Because of the natural environment. No, it could just be that people in the countryside are more healthy because they get more exercise, or they have a different genetic makeup, or it could be because the city is unhealthy.
Which needs to be preserved by judiciously accommodating the growing urbanization in the existing residential buildings.
For coherence and cohesion, it's very important that you use appropriate connectors to link paragraphs. I would advise you to avoid the use of the word moreover, because 99% of the time when people use it, they use it incorrectly. Moreover means in addition and more importantly. In fact, more than just more importantly, so important, so overshadowing the thing that came before it that it makes that almost, I wouldn't say anything, but it doesn't necessarily, what follows here doesn't seem to be, first of all, on topic, and second, not necessarily more important than what you've already said. There are several ways to address the increasing demands of new homes, which is not part of the question. There's no language in there that indicates that you should talk about alternatives to developing in the countryside. Now, I don't suppose it hurts your band score, but it's not going to count for anything. You're spending a lot of time in this whole paragraph talking about something that they're not even asking you to talk about. It's not not part of the question. Okay, now you really get into your vocabulitis. Primarily, city planners should devise a number of strategies to accommodate the growing population in the existing residential constructions. That's a lot of multisyllabic words. This can be implemented by developing multiple sources of horizontal buildings. Now you're really going overboard here, which potentially minimizes the utilization of urban landscapes. Use plain English. I beg you, and you will do better. This is hard to read and not very precise. I suppose develop multiple stories, horizontal buildings. Oh, you mean skyscrapers? You mean high rises? They have another word. Constructions again. This. What is this? Potentially minimizes. If it's not in the countryside, it's not going to affect it. But we had our not only but also. Okay, this approach not only enhances the economic development of the nation. You haven't discussed that. That's not in what the paragraph's about. But also significantly contributes to the sustainability. It's landscape. I mean, it's rural landscape, countryside. Whatever this where's landscape in this? Rural. You don't sustain landscapes. You really don't need to sustain countrysides either. It just is, and the ecosystem. To conclude, in conclusion, I contend that the countryside holds a significant importance. Perhaps it does, but does it override the importance of people having places to live, which needs to be preserved by judiciously accommodating? Now, here you've used accommodating incorrectly. Accommodating means give concessions to, and that's not mentioned. It's more like don't urbanize the countryside in the existing residential developments. See, your point of let's build up instead of build out is lost in the sea of polysyllabic $5 words that you think make the paper more academic, but actually just makes it harder to follow. So I generally don't do this. I generally don't. I forgot to turn off the mute button on the microphone, so I'm having to do a voiceover here of what I've already said. We'll start with task response, which is the column over on the left. Okay, and if we look at 5, 6, and 7, the writer expresses a position, but the development is not always clear. That's certainly the case here. I think you're saved though by the language in band 6. A position is presented. It is relevant to the prompt, but the conclusions drawn may be unclear, unjustified, or repetitive. That's more of what I read there. So I put this in a 6 for task response. Moving on now to coherence and cohesion. Now, your use of cohesive devices, as I noted, were inaccurate. That moreover is a big one. And then there was some illogical usage within the paragraphs as well. So there are some cohesive devices that were used for good effect, but the connection between the sentences or paragraphs is misused. So that would be a 6 in coherence and cohesion. In your use of vocabulary, you are a risk taker. There will be a wider range of vocabulary used, but higher degrees of inaccuracy and inappropriacy. That's a 6 to a T. And then in grammar, your grammar was pretty good. Just some mistakes here and there, and they didn't necessarily impede communication, but you really got to pay attention to some mistakes that you've used several times. First of all, the plural for uncountable nouns. Okay, tips specifically to you. Avoid this vocabulitis. This is my word. Don't sacrifice clarity for impressive vocabulary. Use less common vocabulary only when it adds precision to your ideas. Lexical resources with caution. Next, let's talk about, what's the next one? Oh yeah, respond to the task presented. That whole last paragraph about possible solutions other than building in the countryside was well intended, but it doesn't answer the question that's presented. It's a different question. That's a problem solutions essay, not part of what you're supposed to do. You also need better support for your ideas. Paragraph discipline. Moreover, furthermore, those cohesive devices are off. So more discipline there. Overall, I wish you well. If you would like further assistance, contact me, and I'm available for hire.